Hi, I'm Robert. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I take this image from here to here, all in Lightroom. I had a follower on Instagram reach out to me and offer me one of his images to edit. This was shot on a Nikon D750. Here's the settings: an eighth of a second, f14, ISO 50. It was shot on a 14 to 24 at 24 millimeters. Alright, let's get started. I like to start at the bottom and work my way up. I just leave calibration alone, make sure it's on the most current version. I don't add vignetting to most of my landscape images. Let's check to see if this image is level. It is slightly off, so let's fix that. That looks good. Apply profile corrections and remove the chromatic aberrations. Let's add some sharpening. I always add 100 of sharpening and then apply a mask. Hold down the Alt key. And we'll go to about 55. Everything that's white will be sharp and everything that's black won't be. We don't need to sharpen the sky. Let's add a little bit of split toning in here. Looked like it was shot on an overcast day, so we don't have a whole lot of color in the sky, so let's try and bring some of these highlights up and warm them up. We'll start off here. We'll bring some coolness back into the shadows. Right about there. Let's check on the white balance. I think we need to move it up just a little bit. That's a good starting point. We'll come back to the HSL panel. For now, let's add a little bit of contrast, bring down the highlights, and bring the shadows up a little bit. That looks good. You can see here on the histogram we're not clipping yet, so let's bring the white point up just a tiny bit. Plus 10 will do it. We don't need to adjust the black point, we're all the way to the left. Next, let's take care of some of these dust spots. Click on the spot removal tool and visualize spots. We can see a few problem areas here. We'll just remove these. You'll get dust if your sensor is dirty, and especially if you're shooting at f14, but it's easy enough to clean up. There we go, no more dust. Let's add a graduated filter over the sky. Hold down Shift. That'll make your line straight. We're going to bring the exposure down a little bit, bring the temperature up, and let's crank the saturation up in the sky. A little bit of a green tint here. Let's see if we can add some magenta into the sky. We can adjust the colors a little bit more with the HSL panel, but this is a nice starting point. Let's go down to the HSL panel. I like to start with luminance. Let's see if we can darken up the orange a little bit to add some more color to the sky. And that's about as far as we can go. If we try and go any farther, we can see we're just getting this weird color banding. So we'll go back to -25. Next I go to saturation, bring that up a bit. That looks pretty good. Let's see if we can adjust the hue on the orange. We can bring it more towards the red, more towards the green. We'll probably go down a little bit. So here's our starting point. Let's bring it down a little bit to make it a little more red. That looks pretty good. Now let's go back up. Let's do some fine tuning now. So we're going to use the adjustment brush. This area of the image is not too important. I kind of want to darken it so the eye's not drawn to it. So we're just going to paint in some darkness here. We'll have our brush set at -0.3. Maybe we'll add a little bit darker, -0.4. Let's get a new brush, press new. This water is what I want to really highlight in this image. So press O, let's turn on our overlay to see where we're brushing. Let's brush all of this area in. And we're going to brighten it up. Turn off the mask. Reset our tools. Then let's bring the exposure up. Let's see how high we can bring it without looking too weird. Maybe a third of a stop. That looks good. Let me show you the before and after. So it really brings some brightness to this area. Draws the eye in. Let's add one more brush. And let's paint this rock. Let's see how it looks if we brighten it up a little bit. I don't like that look. Maybe we'll just add a little bit of clarity or texture. There you go. A little bit of texture brings it out. Now we have the emphasis right here on this rock and the water splashing this way. Let's do one more brush. Let's see what we can do with the sea here. It was looking a little bit bright. So we'll darken it just a little bit. And let's try a little bit of saturation and see how that looks. Before and after. Looking good, looks more moody. We have a lot of nice contrast. So just to recap, here's our brush for the ocean. We just brought the exposure down a little bit and increased the saturation. This rock, we just added some texture to it. The rushing water here, we brought up the exposure so it's easier to see. And we darken this area to de-emphasize it. So this image is looking pretty good. I don't think there's much else I would do to it. So thank you for sending in your submissions. If you would like your images featured on this channel, just get in contact with me on Instagram and send me a DM. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks. I've made a second edit of the same image. It's a little bit brighter. Here's where we were before. And here's the after. Let me show you what I did. All of these settings are the same: calibration, effects, transform, lens correction, sharpening, all the same. Split toning is slightly different. It's a little bit stronger. I added a little bit of negative luminance on the blue and positive saturation on the blue. The other thing that made a difference was the brushes. This brush on the water is at 0.4 versus 0.3. And this brush on the water, I made it a little bit cooler and brought up the saturation. Those are the only differences. But it made quite a big difference in the final image. Which one do you like better?